for Peter, for Bill, for Tim, for Chris, for everyone who made this happen today. And keep this going for yourself. Being out here on a busy Saturday, you probably have a lot to do. We want to make sure that we honor your time as well. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. Let's turn the clock back to 1865. The guns of the Civil War were falling silent. In Virginia, near the town of Petersburg, a Confederate locomotive sat half submerged in the James River. It was damaged, it was forgotten, it was deserted. But mounted atop that engine, gleaming in the southern sun, there stood a solid bronze bell. As the Civil War drew to a close, the air was thick with tension. In the small hamlet of Theresa, New York, brimming with riverside mills and factories, there were immigrants from the British Isles, immigrants from the Moravian or German countryside, and there was also a brand new schoolhouse that was standing proudly. Yet, something was missing. It had walls, it had windows, it had chalkboards, but there was no voice, no bell to call the students in from the fields and to signal the start of the school day, or in some cases to warn of danger, such as fire. The village simply couldn't afford one. There were sturdy walls, there were desks, there were eager children, but again, no bell, no voice to summon those lively students, to warn or to welcome. The community just simply couldn't afford it. Now, 3 young soldiers from the Union, they were young men from Theresa themselves. They heard this news from home, and in that moment, they had an idea that was perhaps creative. You could perhaps call it audacious. You could even say it was a bit unearthly. You see, they knew that the bell on the Confederate locomotive mentioned moments ago would never ring again for the South. But maybe, just maybe, it could ring and be reborn in the North. Those Theresa boys, they waited for nightfall. Quietly, carefully, they pried the 80-pound bell from its perch and they stashed it away. But then presented a problem. How to get it back to New York? That was the challenge. Freight was always carefully inspected. Soldiers certainly were always verified and counted. But coffins. Coffins. Yes, coffins. Coffins, they went home unquestioned. So in an act of military-grade mischief and ingenuity that was likely born in this very village from days roaming the many hills and valleys, the lakes, the riverbanks of our mighty Ogequack, some people call the Indian River, the boys had a solution. One of them, after all, worked as a mortician's assistant. So together they built a box, a soldier's coffin. Inside they placed a large log, some straw, and the stolen bell, with its muffled clapper held in a pair of Union long johns. They made it weigh just what a soldier might, and then they did something absolutely brilliant, or maybe normal. They gave the bell a name. No, not the bell. The bell wasn't named. The coffin itself was for young Mr. Schule Bell. Schule, from the German word for school. They rode ahead to Theresa. They announced the tragic loss of poor Private Schule Bell. Arrangements were made. A solemn funeral was planned, and official documents were drawn up. Letters were sent in advance, and on April 7th, 1865, just 2 days before Lee surrendered at Appomattox, the coffin was placed aboard a train bound for Philadelphia Station. When the coffin arrived in Philadelphia several days later, the grieving mourners met it with tears and reverence. They followed the wagon home, and only once out of sight did the true mission truly unfold. The coffin lid was open, the bell, silent yet gleaming, was lifted out. Another log took its place, the lid was shut, and the funeral continued. And thus, with great honor, Private Schule Bell was laid to rest, perhaps even with a gravestone, perhaps. But friends, As exciting as that may be, that is not where the story ends. You see, Schule Bell, minus his modest rank, or dare I say, School Bell, lived on. For nearly 70 years, this very bell was in the bell tower of the Sand Street High School, or Sand Street School. Many may remember where that was. It called students to class, it warned town folks of fires, it even chimed in on Hollywood pranks, and was held in preparation in the event that the village was ever raided via airplane. Eventually, the bell, along with the school, retired, and around 1939, it moved inside. It was placed behind glass in what was then the new Theresa High School. We now know it as Theresa Primary School, that lovely building I mentioned a few minutes ago, where not only did I go to school K through 6, but I had the privilege of serving as principal. It rests there to this day, tucked inside a display case near the main door, and it's passed by young students every day with hardly a glance, at least until now. Many students never know that it was once crashed, it once died, and then was born again with a soldier's name and a new life and a symbol for generations of Theresa students. This old bronze bell, it doesn't ring anymore, but oh, if it could talk. Schule Bell is certainly no ordinary bell. The bell lived through war, it traveled through the night, it served the cause of education in a way that few actually ever have, and will continue to do so, especially with its mighty new carrying case that also serves as a display. So now the school and the community will be able to showcase Schule Bell. Very many thanks to in River Central School District's Buildings and Grounds and Custodial Department for their work. That old bronze bell may not ring anymore for the school, but oh, if it could talk. Well, that's the story of the Schule Bell. But do you remember I said that it had a gravestone? That's because one man never forgot. His name was August Kissel, and he's part of why we're here today. Also a Union soldier, as we've heard. He was also from Theresa. He was captured in the war. He escaped, made his way through swamps and eventually snow. He risked his life, and when the war was over, he dedicated himself to honoring those who served through his work as a Mason, especially those who might otherwise be forgotten. He was a monument maker, a man who set out to use his stone to create memories that would last a lifetime and beyond. Someplace, as legend has it, in this Oakwood cemetery, there is a marker. On it is carved Schule Bell, 1865. No birth date, no regiment, just a name and a date. Because even a bell, when it rings with meaning, deserves to be remembered. We dare you, after we conclude, to find that very marker in this ceremony, in this cemetery today. So, we wrap things up today. As we celebrate the legacy of August Kissel and many others, let us also remember the legacy of Schule Bell, smuggled home in a coffin, hidden in a pine box, and rung for decades in service of education in this beloved village. Let this be a reminder that history doesn't just live in textbooks. It lives in the voices of those who dare to act, to care, and sometimes to get a little creative, audacious, or unearthly. After all, mischievous Theresa boys are sometimes known to get a little creative to accomplish a task, share a story, or even find some way to mark the past. If you are successful, friends, today in your quest to find the marker that closes the loop on this particular bit of Theresa lore, perhaps you, we, as citizens of Theresa, many of us descendants of our founders, and even me as the humble great-grandson of August Kissel's August Kissel's granddaughter, Alice, and of course, I'm a Theresa boy of old, we can all then know, if you find that marker, the rest of the story. And once again, thank you.